your ears and mind, prepare your heart for the teaching and the preaching of the word of our God. The hour has come, so people, let's get right to it. Prepare to feed your soul with Exo's preaching bullets.
I'm glad that in studio today I have a dear brother and a friend of the show who will help us today dissect some important biblical truths. Pastor Xoli, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Ish, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
We are going to be discussing the importance of knowing and fulfilling our purpose, the purpose of God in for our lives.
Yes.
Maybe I want to just now start off by saying, hey, any maybe biblical principles you want to share as it relates to this topic? What will be maybe looking at each individual principle that we can teach the young person at home as it relates to the importance of knowing and fulfilling their purpose?
All right. I think one principle we can start with is the issue of gifting. The one thing I want to say to the young person is that if you want to find out God's plan and purpose for your life, look at your gifting. In other words, look at the areas in which you are gifted. Look at the areas in which you are strong. Maybe at this point, I'd like us to quickly look at two verses. The first is in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, if we look at verse number 7, here's what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 7. And he says, if I read from the NIV, it says, I wish that all men were as I am. And then he says, but each man has his own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. Now notice it says, each man has his own gift from God. Another verse we can look at is Romans chapter 12. And in Romans chapter 12, we'll look at verse number 6. Romans chapter 12, verse 6. And it says, we have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. Now notice that the NIV says we have different gifts. I, however, like how the Living Bible renders this particular verse. If we read this verse from the Living Bible, the Living Bible says that God has given each of us the ability to do certain things well. So in other words, to find out your purpose, look at the things you're good at. Look at the things that you're gifted at, what you're talented at, what flows naturally to you. Because, for example, God will not call you to sing if he's not given you the voice for it. So your gifting will always be aligned with your calling and your purpose. And as a matter of fact, your gifting becomes an indication or a pointer of what God has called you to do. In other words, whatever God calls you to do, he'll also gift you or enable you to do. So to find out the purpose of God, one principle that we can look at is that of gifting. Look at your talents, look at your strengths, look at your abilities. What am I good at? Because those will be a pointer towards the purpose of God for your life.